$4.7 trillion is scheduled to move through the United States financial system. This isn't a crash, folks. This isn't a bailout. It's nearly 20% of the entire United States economy moving in less than 1 year. And when money moves like that, it doesn't vanish. It simply changes hands. What I wanted to do is I wanted to show you where the $4.7 trillion is coming from. But I want to show you how historically that money has moved and why where you store your money matters more than how much you earn. Let me repeat that. Where you store your savings matters more than how much you earn. Because if you don't control where your money lands, then you don't control what it does. My name's Chris Naugle, and this is another What Now? What's Next for $4.7 trillion. For the past 10 years, I've been on a mission to help people like you take back control of their money. And I gotta be honest with you, this wealth transfer that we're about to talk about may be one of the biggest opportunities that we've seen to do exactly that. Now, if you want to understand money beyond the headlines, and if you want to learn how the wealthy actually structure their financial lives, go ahead right now and click that little button right here, that subscribe button. That's going to subscribe to this channel. But here, there's one more thing, because everything we teach here is about control and clarity, so you need to control all the future videos I'm going to do. There's a little bell up top. I need to smash that bell, and you'll be notified every time I put out new content. So let's break down this $4.7 trillion and where it's going to go, because that's a lot of money, right? Well, I got 4 buckets here: consumers, corporations, businesses, and industrials. And I broke down what they're anticipating this being. Now, these numbers are hypothetical, but they're probably going to be pretty close. $1.2 trillion. It's a lot of money. But it's really the $8,400 that they're saying is an average tax refund that taxpayers could get. And that's going to all come back to consumers. The second bucket goes to corporations. This is nothing new. They've been doing this. But this is going to be a surge in stock buybacks. The corporations are going to feel about a $2.1 trillion surge. And it's going to be because they're bringing overseas money back home. This is happening right now. You're seeing it, you're hearing about it, but are you really seeing the impact of it? Well, not yet. Because what's going to happen is these corporations are going to do buybacks. And that means they're going to buy their own stock back, which is going to increase the asset price, increase the stock price in many cases. Not only that, dividends will be paid out, which would be great if you own the stock. Again, it matters that you own the asset and control the asset. The other thing, mergers and acquisitions. These companies are going to use some of that money to grow through buying other divisions, other companies. They call this M&A. Other one that I think is the most fascinating is $1.4 trillion. This is going to come back to businesses and industrials. I'm really close to this, so I fully understand this. What this is the 100% bonus depreciation. That's right. These companies were incentivized to buy equipment. They were incentivized to buy these items, these equipment or anything else, because they got 100% bonus depreciation. Now, we had this in the past, and it was really favorable for businesses and corporations. But now it's back, and it's back for a short period of time. So these corporations, these industrials, they're not going to just sit on that money. They're going to go out and they're going to spend it to get these deductions. Because, hey, if a corporation gets a deduction of 100% that they can write off, okay, that's like them getting more money to grow. And they're going to use that. They're going to use every bit of it. It's happening as we speak. It's like the best incentive to spend money, because it's money that normally wouldn't have even been theirs. This is how I look at it. This is how you need to look at it. It's really how you need to look at all of these. $4.7 trillion that exists in the flow of money today, but it's going to be redirected to one of these places. You, in the form of a tax return. A corporation, because money from overseas is coming back here. And industrials and businesses, because of that 100% bonus depreciation, incentive to spend money that normally would have been paid in taxes. It's a beautiful thing. This time is going to be different. Now, I know you've probably heard that before, and it never was, right? But I think this one really will. So it's not printed money. So it can't really be considered a stimulus, but it is a stimulus. But what the difference is the way that it's being layered into the economy. So in 2008, let's kind of dissect the past. In 2008, there was a bailout. That was a rescue. That was a collapse of the financial system, and it almost did, but they rescued it by printing a lot of new money. And then we all remember 2020, COVID, right? That was a stimulus, but that was all about survival. How much did they print then? I think the number's like $5.2 trillion printed into existence, which deflated the value of your dollars. They called it inflation, but you know what it really was? Is when new dollars are printed, your dollars become worth less, so they buy less. Was it really prices going up, or was it just your dollars got weaker? I'll let you figure that one out. And now you have the 2026 liquidity event that we're talking about, $4.7 trillion. It's not printed money. It's not money being printed into existence that devalues your dollars. So really, it can't be looked at the same way we looked at 2008 or 2020. This is truly an acceleration event. And that acceleration is going to really, really surge the economy. That's my opinion on that. But I think when new money finds its way into these different buckets, this is the only thing that can happen. So when we really look at that, we also have to factor the point that we're dealing with lower than normal unemployment. The job market is still relatively healthy. Even though unemployment numbers have ticked up, it's still really good. Not only that, you got a lot of pent-up demand. I mean, look at Warren Buffett. How much money is he sitting on the sidelines? A lot. And that is no different than people like myself and many of you. There's this uneasy feeling, this unknown, right? Which is forcing a lot of money to just sit. It's not being put into work. It's not being invested. It's just sitting, waiting until we have clarity. So a lot of pent-up demand. And, well, the Fed finally is moving down with interest rates. You're seeing a lot more easing going on in the monetary policy. All of these things play massively into what's going to happen in the economy. Now, here's the warning. I don't want to get you too excited to rush out there and go invest every penny. I also still think that it's time to be a little bit cautious because we just don't know. This sounds great, doesn't it? But is it really going to happen? I'd watch closely. But if you're going to invest your money, invest it into things you know, like, and understand. But most importantly, like I mentioned with the wealthy, where you park your money first is what's going to matter. So let me show you something. When we talk about the wealthy, all this new money that's going to find its way into their pockets or their bank accounts, that money could just immediately be invested into assets, okay? So, and much of it will be. But the smart money, that's the money I'm talking about. The smart money is going to change, and where's it going to go? Well, I have to believe it's going to go into people's private banking systems. And what is a private banking system? Well, it's nothing more than a specially designed and engineered whole life insurance policy from a mutually owned company that pays dividends. Well, the same reason why banks park a lot of their tier one capital into these similar vehicles. They call it BOLI. Look it up, B-O-L-I. And look up how much all the banks that you deposit your money at put into these specially designed policies. But once the money goes into these policies, the wealthy will never leave the money just sit there. Even though that money in these policies, it has guaranteed interest, it pays dividends because these are mutually owned insurance companies. It's protected, which the wealthy love, protected against judgments and liens. And also, it provides an instant legacy because it's got a death benefit attached to it. But all of that isn't as advantageous to the wealthy as investing in assets in a time like this. So what they do is they change where their savings goes. They put it into these policies for the obvious reasons we just went over, but they then immediately move that money back out and they buy assets with it. You see, that's the difference. These policies are properly structured to allow for this. That's why I didn't call it just a whole life policy. I called it a private banking system because it is. This is exactly what the wealthy are doing with it. They're doing that because all of the money that they move into this policy that earns guaranteed interest, dividends, protected, and also the death benefit, that money continues to earn uninterrupted compounding interest, even when they take that money out because they're taking that money as a loan. Now, let me just pause there, and I want to explain another thing that you probably have heard of. Elon Musk. You've heard about him, right? He gets lots of stock options. But, you know, Elon's gone public saying he doesn't pay a lot in taxes. Well, actually, he says two different things. He says, I pay a lot of money in taxes, but he's talking about corporate taxes. Himself, it's been proven. Here's what he does. He takes his Tesla stock. Let's just use that one as an example, okay? He goes out to a brokerage account and he gets a margin account. And then he borrows from that margin account. And he uses that borrowed money tax-free to go out and spend on the things that he needs to spend money on. He takes a lot of it, invests it back into real assets, his companies, all these different things he's doing. But here's the thing. Because he's borrowing the money, he's not paying tax on that money. That money just gets to sit in the stock and appreciate in a tax-advantaged way while he borrows money to use it to buy investments. Well, that's exactly what we're doing here, except we're not using a brokerage account. We're using a specially designed whole life. And then we're taking loans from that insurance company's general account, and we're using those loans in this scenario to buy these assets we just talked about. Now remember, you're only going to buy or invest in these assets if you know, like, and understand them. Consult with your advisor, work with wealth advisors that know what they're doing and can give you good fiduciary advice on what you're going to invest in. The point I'm trying to make is, why make money once on the asset when you can make money twice on the same dollar? And that's what you're doing here. Because you're earning uninterrupted compounding interest on that whole life policy, and then using it to buy assets. These assets, we hope, go up in value, but the policy is also going up in value. The only thing we need to factor is the simple interest that the insurance company is charging us on that loan. Simple interest on the loan, okay? That's it. But we have all the mathematics, and the Vault software shows us that when you do this over time, the policy and the compounding you earn is greater than the interest that you're paying on the loan. For example, let me just make this simple. Let's just say you were earning 6%. This is a hypothetical dividend crediting rate, but some of the companies we deal with are paying north of 6%. You're earning 6%. And let's just say that that company allows you to borrow at hypothetically 5.5%. The reason I'm saying hypothetical is these numbers change over time, and this video will be, well, technically, around for a long period of time. And you invested in an asset that makes 10%. How much did you actually make? Well, you made 10% here. You made 6% hypothetically in a dividend crediting rate, but you had to give 5.5% back. I think you can do the math. You made money twice. And as this money compounds up, and as you take money from these investments and you put it back into the policy as loan repayments, you can control this. It's called an APR. You can bring that APR down. Now, I don't want to get in the weeds. I know that was a lot to unpack. But what I'm trying to explain is the way the wealthy use their money and the way that the average person uses their money are two different things. I'm trying to close that gap for you because this event's going to happen, whether you want it to or not. Yeah, tax returns are going to flow, corporations are going to do buybacks, pay dividends and all that good stuff, and industrials are going to invest because why not when they get 100% bonus depreciation. All that money is going to flow into the economy. What do you think is going to happen next? I'll leave that up to you. I'm just kind of putting this whole little puzzle together for you. So when you really think about the policy, this policy becomes a storage warehouse for your capital. And then when you need the money to do anything you want in your life, you could use it to pay off debt. You could use it to fund life. You could use it to invest. You could use it to lend money on real assets instead of owning them. All of those things can happen, but your money never leaves your system. You're in control. And as you repay those loans, like I said, as that money comes back, you create more capacity. You never gave up control. Now, they didn't reset to zero in this case. You're constantly building. They use the money without losing it. That's the shift that I'm trying to get you to understand. Most people are taught to earn, spend, and start over. The wealthy do not do that. The wealthy store, borrow, replenish, and repeat. That's the difference between consumption and control. You want to be on the control side. This $4.7 trillion event is going to reward people like you who control liquidity, own assets, and think in the form of systems and processes, not people who chase returns. The goal isn't timing the market, folks. And the goal is never being forced to sell or to start over. And if this is starting to click for you, the next video I want you to watch is right here, The Secrets of the Rich. Yeah, and this video is going to break down how the wealthiest families think and how they structure money and why they never lose liquidity